Raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got the an open session pledge of allegiance. Let's all stand together. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Attendance a little bit down this evening. A lot of our administrators, most of you in here have been working around the clock on the distribution centers and different things like that. We do appreciate your help in doing those things. I know the community does immensely. It is heartwarming to see the level of support that has come to Ashe County through all of this, and just you all keep everybody in your thoughts and prayers that have been through devastating of losing homes and damage, everything like that and more. I'm afraid to hear as we go through and places are discovered on that. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Cox here. I was just gonna let everybody know why that we're down just a little bit on attendance.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate everyone who's been working so hard, all of our staff. And I've been observing that firsthand, and Dr. Mogan, you're amazing. Anybody that would take a car loaded with stuff 2 days after this mess and head up the river, kudos to you and your staff. And there's many more cases like that. I just happened to observe her heading out, and then that took some guts to do. So we do appreciate everyone in the school system and everywhere else for all the help. And I know the community's reaching out and they appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Anybody else? Let's open the floor for a little bit.
Well, I would like to add my thanks to that, but especially to Dr. Cox, because she has gone way above and beyond what seems to be human endeavor, the way she has worked so hard and looks so not so well. She looks kind of not too wore out. To be honest, I think I went 4 days without combing my hair. I'm serious. It's depressing to be home with no electricity and 7 candles and 2 flashlights. 4 bottles of water, 5. Because next time somebody says catastrophic, you better believe them. But thank y'all. Y'all are wonderful at everything you do. All right.
Anybody else? I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Cox for comments from the superintendent.
Normally I would be highlighting people and bringing them in and, sharing normal school business. And the last week and a half has been anything but normal. But there are so many stories, just like you shared, of Dr. Moken taking her car up to some places that were anywhere, still not easily traveled. Lindsay Williams was on her 4-wheeler with her 2 girls with water and backpacks and food and supplies, taking them to families that she knew already needed the help, but needed it even more because of this storm. The Tammys of the world that I had to send home because she would have worked herself to death, feeding people and making sure they were taken care of, even if they were not affiliated with Ashe County Schools. She does it all. To Terry, who yesterday and Saturday was by my side the whole day until late yesterday evening. We opened another feeding site, or a distribution site at our early learning center after getting a call from a community member in desperation saying, hey, we need this. And Anthony, who was playing with his son and his grandson on Saturday, and I said, Anthony, can you get there before me? And he said, yes, ma'am, and was right there to open up the site. There are so many different people here who have gone above and beyond. Amy, who was dealing with her own cattle, and I think she has 12 new babies through this storm. And yet she showed up every day and made sure we had what we needed. everybody, they pitch in like you wouldn't believe. We work with great people here in Ashe County. And what we've seen all over our community is exactly that. Neighbor helping neighbor, a neighbor figuring it out for others, people going above and beyond. We have those, our theme is 100% this year, and boy, it resonates now more than ever because people give all of their 100% to everything that they do. And the care and the community that I have seen over the past almost 2 weeks has been absolutely incredible. A week ago Friday during the storm, I've got a picture of Dustin Farmer riding the, whatever it is that cleans up the floors at the high school because water was pouring through some of the ceilings, and we mopped floors and moved tables and got things ready for the shelter. So many different things. And then the community members that have just stepped up above and beyond. Yesterday and outside of our community. Yesterday we had a group, yesterday and the day before we had a group from Chapel Hill that was there for the weekend just to help. And they were a fantastic help. That was probably the most organized distribution center I've ever seen. By the time it was over with, everything has the 5S labeling model. And so if anybody's worked in industry and knows how organized that can be, it's truly impressive. And so, if I continue to go on, I could talk all night about what our community has done and for each other, and sometimes forgetting about themselves. So our principals, our teachers, our counselors, others, you all have been in the community. Thank you. So, but I was reminded by a really wise person, Amanda, that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I was reminded even more about that as I sat in a community emergency management meeting today. So we'll talk more about that later when we have discussion about Hurricane Helene and some of the things that are going on. But this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And so even though we've all been having a sprint right now because of the urgency, excuse me, the urgency in meeting the needs of so many people, and we already knew they had needs prior to this disaster. We're going to be in this for a while, and so we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and each other, and making sure that we're thinking ahead, and sometimes weeks ahead for what that means. So, anyway, thank you. So that's kind of the announcements and updates. I normally would put a list of the dates that are there. They're still in the same Google Doc. Nothing's changed. And we still have, school goes on in a lot of ways, even when school isn't going on, because a lot of other counties are still in school. So we still have state deadlines to meet and other things that we're dealing with as directors and even some principals. But for the most part, the student activities that you've seen in there are postponed until we can get through some of this. We will be talking more in the coming days about how we can re-engage our students, even if we're out of school, and that might include student athletes. I don't want them to miss their full seasons. We've got a volleyball team that I think that could win the state championship this year. So, I don't want this to be like a COVID and kids have it ripped away from them, but we also know safety has to come first, and we need to make sure that we're thinking about the children that we have and their safe travel as well. So we'll talk more about that later, and things change daily. Some of the things we have to wait on the state to decide. Some of the things that we will get to decide on our own, but only as the time is right. We also postponed our golf tournament again. So the new date will be in the spring. I'll make sure everybody has that well advertised. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So I'm glad you guys are all okay and surviving, even some of you without power still. I got to notice that maybe we were out of power, but I wasn't at home, so it didn't matter. Anyway, but thank you, Josh.
Thank you. I don't see anybody for public comment.
No, but I also want to say to those of you that have been out and seen, some of you couldn't get out. which we understand, but we even had, Josh was cleaning out the freezer, at our, a couple of our schools. We had
Middle school.
the middle school, anyway, we had freezers cleaned out there. I know Diane, we'd seen you at Blue Ridge Elementary School, with little Henry. A lot of people have been out and about and truly helping, in our schools, but a lot of people even in the community too. So, thank you for that.
I will say they like carrots at the middle school for some reason. I've never seen so many carrots in all my life come out of that refrigerator.
Well, I learned that was orange.
Yeah.
It's the color, you have to have a certain number of
Well,
different colors and.
you got the orange, so box after box on there. New middle school update. Miss Allison Kemp Sullivan is probably right now as we speak at Riverview Community Center, where I think she set up residence down there.
Mhm.
Pretty much. I saw them on Saturday down there, and she is pretty much running that operation down there, and so which is where she's needed.
That's where she's needed.
Right now.
She was trying the last time I touched base with her to fix the electric there so that they can use that as a distribution center, and worrying about the foundations, about all the stuff that washed away and all that. And she's very heartbroken and very tired. And we appreciate her in the community. She has expertise that nobody else has, that she has really dedicated herself to the Riverview community and to her community. And, under the circumstances, I get it.
Yes, and power was on there today.
Oh,
They had it on
hallelujah.
Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Power and power's on too.
Great.
And I do want to say that, as you all received in an email, the bid opening was pushed back a week. So instead of the 10th, it's the 17th. That's for GMP2. And you also had a download for GMP3. That was a huge file. So if you dared to click on it, it will take a while. It took, with the slow internet too, but it did take a while to download those documents, but that's the final rest of the building. So that's a really big document if you want to take a look at that. But I do want to warn you, it does take a while to download, so you need the space for it.
We'll jump on into action items for the board. First is personnel. Anything, Dr. Logan, you have?
Just the little addendum. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
I've seen some teachers resign that I wish hadn't. Some good folks are going on to do other things, and we appreciate what they've done. I hate to see some of those.
Well, one of them, I think, had an opportunity to move to the beach where that's where her heart was. And as much as I know Terry and Jody and I sat with her for a while. Anyway, she's gonna follow her heart too. And I told her, I said, she's welcome back. So if that's not where her heart ends up being, she's welcome to come back.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the personnel agenda with the addendum.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we approve the personnel with the addendum that has been presented to us by Dr. Moken.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got the minutes for the September 9th regular session board meeting. In there. Any corrections or changes needed to be made to those? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got the MOU with JPCS.
Good evening. I am bringing to you a proposed contract for school-based mental health services through contract. We've had to amend this based on our previous policy change. And this comes about because we had some funds that were awarded to us through school safety funds that had to be used for contract purposes. And we attempted to work on doing like a second shift social worker kind of position. It just did not, nobody really applied for that. It wasn't very desirable with the hours and that kind of stuff. So we've been asked to see if this would be an option for us to utilize funds this way. So we got approval to do that. So we're looking to see if you will approve for us to do this for students that qualify.
You know how I am about mental health services for our kids, and I'm a very positive that we're gonna have to have more services for these children when they come back to school, but I wasn't sure how that we could approve this policy and we could not approve the ABA policy. I know that it says MOU, but this is a contract. So if someone would explain.
So
to
this
me
is a
that-
contract. The MOU is not correct. That's on the agenda. This is for contracted services, just like we would contract with speech or OT or BT. These would be related services that could be contracted through us to meet IEP and 504 goals.
And we cannot contract ABA services?
No, in the IDEA grant, in the IDEA legislation, counseling falls under related service. IDEA does not. Counseling, OT, PT, speech and language.
They're all
Nurse.
related services.
And it
So
was,
they have to qualify through an IP or 504, and it has to be, it cannot be a clinical service, it has to be an educational service, access to education. But it is.
So we'll look different than it
IDEA
has to staff for us. These will be educationally related services, not just in general services. So it will look a little different for us.
so how will it be different for those kids attending Jody Collins? Because I know there's.
They will have to go through the tiers, meaning that we will do the levels of intervention with students to put things in place to build supports and build those skills. And it has to directly be related to affecting their educational, their education.
Not just general.
It can't just be just general mental health counseling, because that would still have to happen outside school. This would be if it's included, we need some type of skills that are specific to meeting their education needs.
For 504.
Yes.
So they would have to have a 504.
And go through the MTSS process and all those things.
And
Yes.
and will they be billed, like Medicaid, will it be billed as well? I saw something in here about third-party insurance providers, will they be billed as
We
well?
will be working with, so what happens is Jody will get the paperwork and the referral from us, and I actually don't know if I can answer that. I think we will be billed for the services that the child's receiving at school. Yes, that's correct.
I mean, it's in,
And Medicaid can be used just like they do in related services for OT, PT, speech and language and other person. But if the parent opts
so
out,
that's what that's
because-
referring to, is the Medicaid.
If the parent opts out though, and doesn't want to use their Medicaid or their, we don't get private insurance, just for Medicaid, then we have to private use expenses of actually in schools.
And I don't mean to be picky, but it says August the 1st, and here it is October, and these two, I know.
We can make that change, yes. I didn't guess.
So
that.
is that going to be August 1st from now on, or October?
It would be going forward. This was pending funds. We did not have funds until September that we knew we're gonna be allowed to
Right,
be used this way, so I can change it to today's date if that's acceptable.
yeah. I
And
just was
Fred
wondering
had
the
reviewed
difference.
this one. It's
Yes,
as
Fred
it is
did.
different than what we've utilized with Jody's services in the past.
He's had to make changes due to the fact that it's through the legislation that 504 IEP. That's right here.
What are we looking on page 4, item D, that line being filled in by? The services provided by JPCS under this contract will be evaluated at least blank by ACS.
So there's a newer version that we had to make a couple of changes to because there was a money amount that was incorrect. This is the newest one that was uploaded. Dr. Cox uploaded it Friday, probably Thursday or Friday, but it just says it would be evaluated quarterly
Okay,
is what we've put that in.
Yeah, I have a question there too.
I'm sorry. The other change was under section B. The amount that we have, it could be no more than
75,000.
75,000. We did not have 150,000 for that. It's, so on B, we've changed that amount. I think that was the only changes on management. So,
And the fiscal years like, so that's 2024. And I don't mean to be picky, I just want
it
this
would
to be
say that
good
it's effective as of today's
Today.
date.
today.
And then at the bottom of that, Roman numeral 1, I'll change that to October 7th, and it would extend through June 30th of 25.
Okay. And this is our grant, right? And
This is the school safety
Safety
grant
grant.
through the state,
Right.
and part of it you could ask for, contracted services.
So-
So we just verified that that amendment was okay, because I had not asked for it for this to begin with, but we could not hire positions, I just didn't have anybody to fill that role. Instead of sending it back, we're going to attempt to.
Good work. I was just wondering if it's just a 1 year or if we have a multiple year on this.
That grant
Couldn't
is
remember.
something like is available each year.
Always apply every
If
year.
we see that that's a need, we'll continue to ask for that.
Okay.
I mean, legislators could say, we're not gonna do this anymore. I don't see how it's state of the world.
This year, they've already kind of, the first 2 years we got, it was pretty wide open. This year it came back and it was, you could only ask for so much for school equipment, so much for this, so much for contract. So they're starting to regulate it a little more. So I do look for that not to be an ongoing.
Jamie, do these services happen during the school day?
They would as an education service, yeah, related service.
I don't mean to, but those are questions that I had that I, before we pass it, I want, make sure that we know exactly what we're doing.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract with JC or JPCS with those changes that were discussed.
I move we approve the resolution or whatever, as discussed,
Contract.
the contract as discussed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one, but it may not be directly related to this. Jamie, 75,000 isn't going to go as far as we're going to need it. Are there other grants or whatever we can utilize to help with mental health services
So
or
actually,
whatever?
during the COVID years, we weren't spending any more than that per year. That covered a lot of kids. It covered about 100 kids for most of the year. We won't have near that many that under this structure will receive those services.
Well, what about the ones that had been receiving services that do not necessarily have a 504 or an IEP? There's lots of kids out there, and even I'm afraid some of our smarter kids see consequences that our struggling
To
students
be
do
real honest,
not.
it'll be very similar to my very own child when he was in middle school, when he received his services outside of school.
Hard to different.
And it was private pay, and that's what we did.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you so
I'll
much.
make those changes. Thank you.
Got a budget resolution. There, Ms. Coldiron.
I'll say that on Friday afternoon, Dr. Simmons and I had excitement when one of our teachers had overworked herself at middle school and got sick and had to call the ambulance, and it was a little overwhelming, wasn't it, Dr. Simmons?
It was.
Yeah, she got straightened out, she got a little fluid in her, she just had pushed herself too hard, hadn't eaten and hadn't drank enough. It's hot in that middle school gym, just tell you, it is a hot place, and, but, That's when we decided to call it a day, wasn't it? You have in your packet the budget resolution for 24-25. This is a culmination of all the work we've done through all the budget work sessions that we've had in the last year. If you look back at last year, you can tell the federal's going down a little because the COVID money's going away. As of September 26th, all the COVID funds have been spent, and I feel really good about how Ashe County handled that money, and we got some things that were long-term things that will support the schools for a lot of years to come. So I'm really proud of the decisions that were made there. You have any questions about what was presented?
Is this the right time to ask this question? Did we have a lot of damage to our school buildings with the hurricane? Roofs leaking, torn off sides?
We had roofs leaking.
Pardon?
I said, we had roofs leaking.
Yeah, we've definitely had some roof leaks at 3 different schools. Best of my knowledge, they've all been corrected.
Including the early learning center.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we fared very well,
That's good if that's all.
considering how horrible this disaster has been. So I think that was really.
Do we have any kind of insurance that would have covered that? Okay,
We have our property insurance through the state. We have already sent somebody out to walk with Anthony through our buildings. And I think he was impressed with how well the buildings had held up, and he was impressed with the work they'd already done. So really, really proud of those guys and what they, they really take to heart what they do, and they want everything to look good and be perfect for the kids.
good. So these numbers have not changed since we've had our other meetings.
And the state one's always a little up and down because they will go out and meet randomly throughout the year.
Or take away.
Or take away. Hopefully they'll be dropping, and Dr. Cox talk more about it later, some additional funding to help us get through this month at least.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the 24-25 budget resolution.
I make a motion, we approve this budget resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. I guess you're still up. Keep going.
It's the Amanda show.
Yep, supplement.
So each year we have to bring our supplement A procedures to the board. With your all permission, we are making a small tweak to it and paying the supplement in October instead of November because families need the money right now. We're gonna pay the half, the full local supplement and then the half of the 071 low wealth supplement to our people. You should have had that in your packet as well. Do you have any questions about it? Your version probably still says November on page 8, but that was one of those, when you get ready in the morning, oh, we should do this things, and we'd already looked at this.
That's okay.
I noticed that, and I sort of hate to bring this up, but the non-certified supplement didn't get an increase. Is that because the state did not give one?
The state does not fund non-certified at all.
That's
All
all
local
local.
funds.
Yeah.
So with what we're losing the COVID funds, and then there will be expenses from this that local will probably have to cover. There's probably some other things coming down the pipe that we may end up covering. So at this time, I wouldn't feel good about doing that. I think we're gonna have to look at it in the future as inflation increases, because the dollar is not worth what it was. Hopefully, next year, maybe we can do with an increase for them. I will say our non-certified supplement is the highest in the region.
It is.
So we're lucky, we're fortunate that we can do it.
Well, you know me, I'm trying to get.
And Dr. Fox is the exact same way.
Sorry.
Amanda has to slap my hands and say no.
Just have to remind you, sometimes
It's okay. I mean, we take care of our people.
We
and
do
that's-
take care of people.
But we have to be
Can.
prudent with our funds.
And I am a little concerned about the economy and how things are going. we can't sustain like we are, so I'm afraid we're gonna start seeing state cuts. Even though they're sitting on surplus.
Yeah.
They don't want. 'Em. Of course, I guess this rainy day fund is gonna come in. Hopefully they pass it.
They should give us our hand rub.
They should give us our land road. And it's been going on for close to 30 years now, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Um, I probably won't see it in my time, but maybe somebody else will.
It'll be a lot for her to get it.
Be a lot of money.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to approve the 24-25 supplement procedures.
I move that we approve the supplement procedures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
I know they'll appreciate you coming early, so I appreciate y'all.
Just reminded that it's coming early and it's not coming at its usual time.
And it's not coming twice, it's just
Right.
coming in October.
We'll just let you keep going.
Okay, so the next thing is a memorandum of agreement between us and the county to provide emergency shelter services. We should have this in place. Never had a need for it, but when I was talking to the auditor about the different things, paying something, paying people regardless, what's going on. She reached out to Brunswick County, who has been through this with Florence, and they provided the document that they use for their county, and Fred took that and created this document. Right now, we're gonna ask for reimbursement from the county, which they will turn around and ask FEMA for. The county is the person that, the agency that will work with FEMA. We requested FEMA, it would only be if we had a building demolished or something like that. We won't do it for small things. They'll take care of it.
Man, my main concern was there were so many blanks in the document.
It is up for discussion only, and we're gonna have to,
We've got to wait on their. to come.
wait on their attorney to look at it, so with the county. So this is something we need to get in place, to approve pending those minor changes.
The
with the-
effective date will be the first day we had anybody in the shelter. It'll have to be for there.
And during Hugo, we did have the community shelters because Lansing was a community shelter during Hugo.
I couldn't find any agreements to that.
That probably not,
Handshake,
that was
all
back
that.
when,
Yes.
whatever, but there
Should
was
this-
some.
Should this be something that becomes part of our policy
It
so
will
that
be-
we don't
it is
have to
a-
go through this?
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity,
Yeah,
yes.
it will just roll until we say, okay, we don't want to.
About shelter.
It will just roll and be in a pile somewhere.
And that's why like the term is in here, so you guys can set the term if you want it to be 10 years, and then in 10 years, we look at it. In 5 years.
But you know, as long as we need this, we're going to do this.
Yeah, but so
But-
we don't, we're doing it after the effect, at the fact, rather than having it already
Yeah,
in place.
need it
It makes
right.
sense to have it in place for an extended period of time. Not that we hope for any more disasters, but
We can never.
we can't predict.
Well, now that it's electronic and it's housed in assembly, it will be easier to find, should the rest, should be 20 years from now, and you could have at least a paper trail.
Right.
You know, frankly, the public schools will be the only place that has the infrastructure to. Because there's one or two other facilities maybe. I just don't. there's no place.
Yeah, we're the ones who shoulder a lot of that because of the facility.
So under number 4, we could potentially, and I know we just have done the early learning center. We could potentially list all of the schools under that if needed.
So this,
I have a trouble approving something that has blanks in it. I'm sorry, I have trouble with that.
Well, it's not for
This is a
approval,
we're not
it's
gonna
just
approve
discussion.
that.
Well,
Discussion, it's
Well,
under
It's gotta be
approval.
action.
Excuse me, it's under action.
well, unless we're gonna meet again, we really need to get this in place, but the emergency shelters are just our elementary schools and our high school that are actually approved on that list. There is a list, there's a book And it's a paper book, not even, I haven't even seen the electronic version of it. And there are a couple other community entities that are approved as shelters as well. And a couple of them that I have suggested is we're thinking long-term and about maybe using the high school gym for athletics here in a few weeks, what that might look like, because it's now the shelter at high school where we could potentially make moves. And some of the things that I suggested had never been through that process of approval. And I guess there is a lengthy process of approving shelter spaces.
So this comes through the Red Cross?
No, this
Well-
goes through DSS.
Yes, yes.
The Red Cross is who is running the shelter for DSS currently. And that was a really good move on DSS part, because we had Tammy, who was back there cooking meals along with several of our child nutrition staff, and we were trying to pitch in different ways, and it just made sense as this tragedy grew.
I will say they were really disappointed that they weren't getting Tammy's gravy biscuits. They were, and the Red Cross is doing a continental kind of breakfast, so they took care of them. We were feeding them, they were,
Amy, do you have any idea about how many, it says we will be reimbursed for the meals, right? Do you have any idea about, at this point, about how many meals we might get it reimbursed for?
Before Red Cross took over, we were doing about 200 a day, and I think Red Cross took over on Thursday. That's when I'm thinking it was Thursday. Because we were sending meals out to the fire departments as well. You know, forestry service, all kinds of people. Didn't happen. So.
emergency management at the
Emergency
courthouse.
management.
So it says Fred's currently working on this too. So it is a working document or?
This is Fred's document. It has been sent to
The county.
the county and John Kelly, so
Right, okay.
they'll go through it. Like but what Fred said was you all can go ahead and approve us moving forward with this since it is time sensitive. And you may want to confirm that with him too. That's what the
And,
conversation.
and I think it should only be minor changes. If there's anything significant, absolutely, we'd bring it back to you. But I don't foresee that based on the structures that we've seen in other
It
documents.
basically protects this
Protects what he does.
You know, child nutrition is not drawing any income right now, so we can't.
So the county will have to approve this at their next meeting, if depending on attorneys, how quickly
Yes.
things move, you know?
Yes.
So then they meet again the 21st.
I mean, if there's anything that you want to see changed in this document, it could be pending those minor changes and we can send that to the county. But really the date, the term, and then the actual emergency shelters, and I can send you all the list that through DSS that are emergency shelters for Ashe County schools, but I believe it's our 3 elementary schools and the high school.
Well, I really think that under the term that we might ought to look at this again after the new middle school is built, because it may be one of the best ones that we might have available at that point. So, you know, we need, if, you know, we might want to update this or just look at it, because things tend to get lost. Like, I know we used Lansing as a shelter during Hugo because Mike had to walk home, because he had to go unlock it. And, so I was just, you know, thinking that maybe we need to review it more often than just when we have a disaster, that we are ready for whatever is sent upon our way. And
I think this is
I
not.
hope that's a
Yeah.
last time, but we've got another hurricane ready to hit Florida right now, so we don't know. The climate is changing and we just don't know. I mean, who would have ever heard of a hurricane this force in Ashe County? Even after Hugo, this was so much worse. So if we could just review it, everyone, however many years the board would like to do that, I think it would be a good idea to make sure it's current. And especially since we're getting ready to have another school.
Would 3-year cycle work for
Makes sense.
because the middle school will be up and running hopefully in 3 years?
And note that something like this
Say that,
in
Jean.
place, it could be a minor change if we have a new facility before then that becomes usable, and the county is looking into other facilities, but I think it's a process. So they are going by what they've had in place for quite some time and not necessarily needed them.
So is the space identified that is to be used for the shelter? Is it just the location and then the space, however necessary?
So the shelter document, I've only had my eyes briefly on the actual shelter document, and it's a book about this big tabbed with them. And I don't remember exactly how it is designated, but currently it's where we can block off. So it's the cafeteria area, the gym area. I don't even think they're using the auditorium, but they're using that space outside of it. And essentially the other parts, and they're using the showers right now. We've given them access to that because that was very much needed.
So my contribution last week is I did laundry for the residents that are over there. So I was wondering about the open rooms and the space and if they would have access. I mean, I did it because for whatever reason, you know, it's some older men and stuff, but I mean,
Yeah,
would we,
there's a concern about having too much space open
right?
and because there's a lot of expensive things.
So I closed it back and stuff when I finished because I didn't know. But it wasn't open, it was open downstairs into the rooms and there was some wandering and nothing bad. I mean, nothing bad, but there was potential.
Probably like Mr. Palmer.
Yeah. I know we had the upstairs was blocked off for a lot of reasons because we had staff members in and out on the other side. And we had to put a sign up on the front door. So thank you, that's good information to share. And something to think about, gosh, hopefully we never have another disaster like this again, but you never know. I mean, who would have expected this, like Diane said?
Do we have permission to move forward?
That's what I was gonna say. Do you want us to prove it or permission to move forward?
Wants us to approve it. Permission to move forward if you don't have any changes you want to make, other than specifying the locations and then a 3-year time frame on it.
And then it would become effective the date of that they opened the shelter, which was Thursday. Well, I think we put stuff there Thursday. We opened it officially Friday to residents, but Thursday is when we.
Probably the first day residents would be fair.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we do what she said.
I second it.
Okay. That worked, if I didn't catch it all. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carried.
I think that's all I have today.
I'm around for the Hurricane Helene request.
We'll jump into updates and discussion items. Of course, the topic on every topic right now is Hurricane Helene, so we'll turn that over to Dr. Cox there.
So first of all, Ken, I want to acknowledge you for being there at the shelter, doing the laundry. You were downstairs, so I'm sure we didn't see you during that time. That was quite the chore. To give you all an update, we are getting a laundry pod that's going to be at Blue Ridge Elementary School somewhere in the parking area. They moved a generator in today, and hopefully the laundry pod will arrive. Hopefully it'll arrive. They had requested emergency management had requested a laundry and shower facility, but that has not yet been granted. So right now it's just a laundry facility there.
With your clothes on.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, so the document that you have under this discussion, and of course, we can talk more about Hurricane Helene. But these are the requests that the Department of Public Instruction shared with us. They talked about it at the State Board of Education meeting last week, and I think that I sent you a lengthy email that had some of the options as shared during Hurricane Florence, what Amanda was referencing. We had talked to our auditor, and she sent us some guidance on pay and on leave and what that might mean. Once we're able to safely have expect everybody to be back. And so the very first, page, or the second page, first one of the actual request, are some non-funding needs, and that's a hold harmless for staff. And they're asking for employees employed or contracted by a public school unit shall be deemed to have been employed as scheduled during any of those days missed. And this was a precedent was set during Hurricane Florence as well.
May I ask a question? I saw other employees mentioned in this document, but I never did see bus drivers. Does that include bus drivers?
So yes, so they are employees.
So they will be,
Because it's employee compensation, yes.
right, because I had one ask me yesterday.
So the second one is on school calendar flexibility. And with the calendar law, we have a certain number of hours or days that we have to meet. We typically meet the hours requirement. This crisis will prevent us from meeting those hours this year. And this is asking for that calendar flexibility from the General Assembly. Now, mind you, all of these are requests. None of this is what has been granted because the General Assembly has to act upon it. But prior to, and I've spoken to Ray Pickett, prior to the hurricane, they were scheduled to go back on October 9th. So I hope, that's this Wednesday, I hope they do that, and I'm hopeful that they will take action to help out local school districts. There were 32 school districts in North Carolina impacted by Hurricane Helene. I think there are 14 of us that are not quite sure what we will back.
So what happens if we're out for the 20th?
They're gonna have to act differently.
So have we requested that? Because
This,
right now, it looks like that could be a very real possibility that we cannot, right?
yes.
So,
I mean, I hate to say that out loud because I'm so hopeful, holding on to hope of getting back. But I'll share with you here in a few minutes some of the statistics that I've heard and what we've seen by being out in some of the areas. And I'm not as hopeful as I was prior to that meeting.
Even with how much we're out now, I think of January and February and
Oh, we're gonna have snow.
no, there's
Yeah,
no
we're gonna
doubt
have
about it. Have lots of days out this year.
so should we make someone aware before Wednesday that we have a big meeting?
This is a start.
It's a starting point.
Okay, but
Then we or public instruction will go back and say, this is not gonna work. And then
okay.
take another request back.
Well,
But
And what
would the
happens if
safest
they
thing
don't
be
make-
when people ask us questions to tell them, we've already are working with negotiations on how this will be handled, but salaries should be hopefully will be fully recovered.
Everybody's getting paid in October.
Yeah,
We have been provided guidance by the auditor that we can deplete leave. So if someone did not have that many leave days, we can actually go into the hole with leave days until action is taken by the General Assembly.
so we can assure them that their leave is protected and their that the,
No, we
the
can't.
extra, it will go to assembly to determine whether or not
So
that depletion is approved,
if this passes,
if this passes.
their leave for October will be protected. This so far doesn't go past October.
Okay, so this is just through
I
October.
think they're trying to be optimistic too.
And I don't know that we've had a hurricane where they've been out for as long as, maybe it was 6 months for a couple of them. But I don't know that when this was drafted and taken, that they realized how significant the infrastructure damage is in the western part of North Carolina. And we've only began to peel back the layers of the impact. So I'm hopeful that they'll take this up. They do have precedent set. But we will likely have to go back and, for some of our districts, get additional, have additional requests. The next one is on remote instruction, flexibility, which anyway, I was like, that's a non-issue for us because we don't even have connectivity. So didn't really apply yet. Hopefully it will at some point in time. But I'd rather have our kiddos in school. But right now, this one, we can't do. The next one is on non-funding needs for the ed prep program. So these are our student teachers that are in our building. So, you know, this is a learning experience for each of them too. The following one is on principal bonuses for impact for LEAs and when they are actually going to get paid. So those are ones that were from the previous year. The hold harmless for school nutrition staff. That one was one that I was excited to make sure that was in there. But this is an additional fund because they would lose compensation if not, and this will help us to meet those hours. Salary and benefits is what's requested.
That's why I was asking about the bus drivers. They're
Well,
not
school-
specific.
But school child nutrition has to be self-sustaining, so it's they're paid differently.
So on the first one, it says, except who pays first, all employees employed or contracted by a public school unit. When they are calling that all employees. Child nutrition will be enterprise by itself. So that's why they're given additional funding. Their revenue comes from feds. If they don't serve meals, they don't get revenue.
Right.
So that they're trying to offset that. It won't all, it's not gonna be enough. If you think about 30-some counties, $16 million is not gonna go. Well,
I'm not gonna say.
So we all, yes. And then building equipment and technology loss. I mean, I know that we had computers that got rained on inside the building. You know, we've had some damage that we will be able hopefully recover. But some of this may go through FEMA, others will not. And so this is in addition to what is requested by FEMA. I don't think FEMA will cover the technology piece of it. I don't know, I'm not an expert in FEMA, but I know that if you have mud in your building and other stuff, they'll, you know, take care of that. But this is in addition. So that was the request from DPI to the General Assembly. And again, it's just the request. The General Assembly will have to take action on this. And I'm hoping that they will do so sooner than later. It's my understanding that the 9th is when they are supposed to go back into session. So then comes to the update on Hurricane Helene, and I'll give you the latest numbers from earlier today. Lisa Ashley and I met for some time with our Department of Transportation representative, and he shared some information, showed us some pictures of what he's seeing across the district. And there are, I think I've shared with you this before, in Ashe County, there are over 800 miles of state maintained roads. Of those state maintained roads, they've been through about 70% of those roads to assess them. So they're going to take it through the end of this week. Maybe he said by Saturday, that's what he thinks. They're going to be able to get through the roads in Ashe County. And of course, that's depending on a lot of things. And they're taking pictures of them, they're assessing them, they're putting out cones. They've put out 50 new barricades so far and 200 to 300 cones so far on roads indicating places that are just impassable. There are 650 dots on his GIS where the roads are going to need fixed. So of those 850 miles, with 70% of them already assessed, 650 dots are already there. He estimates another 100 places in that 30% because the 30% is in an area that was less hit. But I know of some places that were not on that list that have not yet been assessed that will, you know, things that you open or down to one road or have a place that's falling in. So our infrastructure is seriously compromised here in Ashe County, as you all know, between roads, bridges, and these are just the state maintained roads. This does not include the family built bridge that goes across the creek to their property that's now gone. This does not include driveways that are washed out that need gravel to safely travel down. And most of the repairs that they're doing on roads are with gravel now instead of pavement. And so a lot of them are going to be temporary fixes to make sure that we can travel on them. And when they say travel, right now, a lot of the travel is not with a bus, it's with an ATV or a four-wheel drive.
That's right.
So makes me nauseous thinking of the amount of infrastructure that was damaged with this storm and the potential inequities this can cause with our kids. And unfortunately, some of the areas that were hardest hit are also our poorest in the county and the ones that need the most help anyway.
Absolutely right.
So some of our major roads through Ashe County, you know, we got 221, for the most part, looks pretty good. 163 has some issues, 194 has some issues, 16 has some issues, 88 is about closed.
From Warrensville on.
From Warrensville up,
Mhm.
like it's, like they said, do not travel that road, it is dangerous.
It's not good.
The road from Lansing up to Little Horse Creek,
Oh, it's awful.
it's falling apart. It's just falling in. And you want to put your vehicle on and you're taking your life in your hands. That's a main road. That's not the back road. It's a main road.
And I've seen some pictures of roads and where you can see it from the right angle and the road looks like it's there and it's eaten out all the dirt and you just have some pavement hanging.
Right,
That's dangerous to even walk on,
right.
let alone put an ATV or a car or a school bus.
Right.
So I ask the same question every day until they're going to get tired of me asking the question about the roads because I really want children back in school. That's what we do. That's what we do well. But right now, that's not possible to do safely. And again, several of us have been nauseous thinking about it. We're taking it a week at a time because things can change, things can happen more quickly than what they think. And with some of the optimism that I see in other areas, it's possible. I saw the screen today of one of our people doing the work. And we had a lot of green dots on the screen. I got all excited. I said, "Have you fixed it?" He's like, "Oh no, that just means the paperwork is done for this and turned in." But when you look at other counties, they're not that far along even with the paperwork. So they've been doing a really good job here in Ashe County of getting to the roads, doing the assessments, putting out the cones, and documenting what needs to be done. And then assigning individual crews to go out and fix it. And he showed Lisa and I one of the that looked pretty minor, and he said, "This is probably a 4-hour job." one crew of how many ever people, probably a 4-hour job. And he said, that's if, and he listed some criteria, and it was a very minor area. Some of them are gonna take much longer. And they also have to do the things that were already on the books. So out going toward, out in Warrensville, Diane, probably the road where it's blocked off to one lane. Like that still has to be done. And they still have to assign crews to it because you can't keep it one lane forever. And a lot of the things that are down to one lane for passable, you can't even see going around the curve. And so you come around a curve and the road's out. And so they have to put cones out and block it off for even further than that. And then there are a lot of things that we haven't thought about, like gravel washing down from people's driveways, and you come around a curve and you're going a little bit too fast and you're going to be in trouble because other roads have washed out onto the secondary roads. So it's a challenge. And in good conscience, I don't think any of us could put school buses on the road.
No.
At this point in time. And it wouldn't be prudent for us to do so until after the roads are assessed and we actually know what that looks like.
Will we have a meeting after that happens so that we can look at what it looks like?
So I asked Josh today about a possible work session with the DOT so that you all could see some of this information. I think it would be helpful for you all to have your eyes on it. Lisa is gonna work with the state to see what we can do because they're operating under the GIS. We operate under TIMS. They have some things in TIMS, but the GIS is what all of these road construction things are happening under. So what we want to do is do some overlays with what our current bus routes are in TIMS and where our turnaround spots are and try to figure out what's safe and what's not. And then we're going to have to get out on the roads and see what's actually safe and what's not before we can recreate bus routes. And there are complete roads and routes that we will have to completely avoid until it's fixed. And some of these roads won't be fixed for a year.
And the sad part about it is some of the ways that we use to get around from other places have also been blocked. I mean, Nash County, you can get there 3 or 4 ways. Most of those ways up our end are all damaged because that's where a lot of the damage came.
And it impacts students from every school. It is widespread. Now, while mostly it's in the Warrensville and north and west area, it's all over the county. And so it's going to take some time for us even working with the DOT and Lisa working with the state to reroute buses and to ensure that we are safely able to do that. And currently our communication systems within the county are still compromised. So when you don't have landlines working, getting that information to families is really tough. And so
A lot of folks don't have landlines.
And a lot, well, and
Anymore, not anymore.
right, so about only 30% of the landlines that are existing were even working as of Friday. And so they're making progress toward it, but it's still gonna take time. And so I just ask for some patience with this. And my goal is to get kids back as safely as possible. But this was pretty grim news today when it comes to getting kids back to school.
Looking at the pictures, it's pretty grim.
So
Most of
the great thing is that we have a lot of people really working hard around the clock to make this happen. And it was wonderful to see that our DOT people have been getting the job done and assessing it, getting the paperwork filled out, and then working to prioritize. One of the things that they said is they would work with us to help to prioritize so that we can ensure that we can actually navigate around so that we can get kids to school. But that's going to take a little time to be able to do. And right now, virtual is not an option until we have better cellular service in a lot of the areas and better even landlines and gosh, power. 20%, we're still about less than 20% today. They've been making great progress on it, but some of them are not easy fixes. So,
My other concern is, you know, I know we have some childcare that we've instigated, but there's gonna be a lot more people needing that as they return to work. So what is that looking like for us? Is that a possibility to expand that?
so we did today. So we expanded,
Besides that,
so we have 75 at one, we have a capacity of 100 at both, is that correct, Jamie? Potentially, okay, staffing.
It's more like 80, but
Okay, so we had 75 at one and 50 at the other as of today, so that's Westwood and Mountain View. And we have the potential to expand again to accommodate where the need is. But again, we have a lot of kids who are we've got a lot of kids out of school and out of pocket with families. Unfortunately, we had somebody to make a complaint about our childcare that we opened up for day camp to the state, and I pushed back. So what we're doing, I think we're following all the rules, we're helping our families, and that's what we're gonna do. So, and Terry took care of that very quickly for us. So, anyway, we're doing the best that we can to get that open, and we still have, like at the pre-K, we still have staff members that can't make it back. They don't have water and power themselves, and anyway, they've lost vehicles, they don't have a way to get out. I mean, significant things.
I saw a custodian today in West Jefferson when I was in town, and it takes him 2 hours to get from his house to Gordon Fork and Creston to West Jefferson.
And
And
that's
then
it.
2 hours back home. So he's on the road for 4 hours for a trip that usually takes, depends on who's driving,
yeah.
30, 45 minutes, you know,
Yeah,
on there. Depends on if you take the shortcut around the dam or,
That's right.
you know.
that's the only way around there.
And so, when you're thinking about that as well.
Hmm.
And how long our bus routes were prior to this.
That's very
It
big.
makes me it really makes me nauseous. I mean, this keeps me awake at night because I want our kids back. But our infrastructure is in real serious hurt right now. So, you know, I appreciate everybody's patience. The DOT is working around the clock. They're prioritizing, they're getting it done. But I saw today, 4,500 little dots just in this little region. So we're not alone in that. Watauga is in a similar boat. Avery County, they already announced that they weren't going back to school until at least January, and they get as much snow as we do.
Oh,
So,
Avery got hit pretty hard. I think.
and I don't know when some of our neighbors are going to go back. My goal is to go back as soon as possible and to find ways to go back as soon as possible. So I've got a team meeting tomorrow with several of my people that I think innovatively along with our principals. And I said, given they don't know this whole perspective, you guys are hearing all of this because this was new information at 2 o'clock for me. But given this information and planning forward, what could it look like if we go back at these particular times? What does that look like? And so they're going to spend the time just trying to think about it, be innovative. There might be other ways that we could do school, but we also have to think about the safety of our staff and our students and what that looks like. So a parent might be able to get them to a community spot, but some of those community spots are gone.
But we aren't going to take in any end of course test.
Oh, we have to, unless we can get,
I don't, we shouldn't have taken any.
listen, I agree with you, Polly. I think but that is my least of my worries.
I know, but that would be so unfair.
Well, we won't, I'm sure we
If
won't.
we're not
be doing
school,
it.
if we're not.
I'm
school,
sure we won't be
take 'em.
doing it in December. It'll probably have to shift everything around, but we're gonna ask for as much flexibility as we can. And really, that's the least of my worries. That's the least of my
The roads
worries.
are the
And the
most-
safety of, and health and safety and well-being of our kids is what I'm most worried about.
The food supply and the food supply for the kids that in certain places and, because I know our church is taking care of some and,
Many.
And when people have power back, we've got some ideas already working there, but until people have power back.
yeah,
they
you can't do
really
anything.
cook.
You just
And
sit there and don't
so-
comb your hair.
So we've got some shelf stable options, perhaps we're working on it. We gotta be able to safely get it there too.
And I've already applied, you know, to where it's available for me to send each child 7 days worth of food at a time, 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches. And so I just have to, you know, we have to figure out who they are. And we have to, you know, create the packaging and whatever it takes to get to them. You know, we have to figure that out. You know, if it's a 4-wheeler, with a little cooler on it. And if you've got power and if you don't have power, it's.
So your dot is green like the state map she was talking
It
about.
is.
Your paperwork,
Green dots.
but do you have the paperwork?
The paperwork's filled out.
Well, that's what the state,
I have
that
got
means paperwork.
filled out. But the application has been approved. So that's a big green dot.
Mhm.
And I have been actually going to, I went to the Crescent Fire Department. This is the second time I've been up there. And, you know, gave them my card and gave them my name and, you know, I'm getting their help working on what the plan could be. And, you know, there's just lots of loops and things to figure out. With, you know, however the curriculum turns out and what we decide to do. That way, that innovation, you know, that'll give us a doorway into other areas. And so, you know,
I'd like to emphasize that even after they get power, the families have been severely impacted by financially as well. We know of houses that are there. We know people who are living in tents. We know people who can't get across the creek to go get anything. So this is not a problem. I know we've got lots of stuff coming in, but it's not a problem that's going to be over after we get power back. I think the power is the magic word because that first hot shower after you get power back is the closest thing to heaven that we might know recently anyway. So, I mean, but that problem is going to continue for our families for months and maybe even years. So, you
and
know,
actually just today I spoke to the food bank and they can send me meals, frozen meals for the adults. So I'm scheduled to get food put back in the freezers at the middle school in Blue Ridge. So getting back in probably about a week before I can get it, but I will get, you know, I think it's 600 meals to put back in those freezers to send to the parents along with whatever I'm sending to the kid.
Yeah.
And that was just a phone call today. It's small conversations that's making huge differences. So, you know, just keep talking to people and seeing what needs to be done.
And the great thing is we do have a lot of community people that are
Yeah.
working together to find it. And so let me give you an example. You know, today was, we talked about distribution and logistics, but also transportation is a 3-day-a-week conversation, so we can get regular updates. On Wednesday, Amy and Tammy are going to go to a community, meeting with some volunteers. And so some of these same volunteers are the ones that are working through churches for food, and some of them are helping to solve other problems in the community that that come up with a storm. On Thursday, Amy and Tammy both are also going for food. Amy's, you know, helped cook for the Skyline and a couple other places, some meals with that, Blue Ridge. And I know Josh was cooking for
Well, I didn't cook.
somebody or serving
Served.
somebody,
I
like you
served.
guys have all
They don't want
been
my cooking.
doing some of that. But Thursday, we have different people are pooling their resources because some churches have different resources than we might. Second Harvest Food Bank has joined in. And that's who contacted you, good, because when I spoke with Michelle Dix, she had made that contact and they have shelf stable food. They have stuff that can be frozen, stuff that has to be heated, some that do not, that are just like packaged sandwiches and stuff. So lots of different options that we have available to us if we know about it. We just need to have a plan moving forward. Right now, lots of people are getting fed. I heard that, what was it, tomorrow at the Preston Fire Department, they're serving Saturday. What day is today?
Monday.
Sorry. On Saturday at the Preston Fire Department, they're serving 2,000 meals, hot meals.
They're serving several places every day.
But But exactly, just about every day, somebody is serving something for our families. So I hope that we're able to reach all of them, and I hope the foods and the goods are getting to people that truly need it, who may not be able to come in and enjoy that hot meal.
I have
Well,
another
Food
question.
Pantry's doing a lot.
Yes, they are.
They
They're a blessing.
sent the boxes with the firefighters that cut the trees out of the road. They have got, I mean, they've got
Ashland
lots.
Pantry is a blessing to our community, even when we don't have a.
Well, my brother runs it, but you know,
Thank you, Kim, for that one.
Miss Sonia is, my niece has come up from Mount Airy to help give out food, and Michael, he likes to, here, take it, go, because we gotta do more. But Sonia opens every window and speaks to them and asks every person that comes through how they are. And it's been like I did to poor Dr. Moken this morning. And they need that human touch. They do. Because it means a lot.
I have a question about the kids who have health concerns. I don't know, we have, speaking from personal experience, I have some medication that needed refrigeration and we didn't have refrigeration, and I was able to use what was in the freezer that was decomposing to keep my medications cold, because they ruin if they don't, and they're quite expensive. So I know that there's no ice in this county. At least there haven't been for over a week. So what are we identifying those children who have those same medications? Because they send it to you 90 days at a time. That's how that they send you your medication. And if you lose it, then you have to replace it. So what are we doing there to help provide or help identify those children who might need extra medication because theirs got ruined or is it no longer usable or no longer effective?
So insulin, for example, I have a type 1 diabetic myself, not me, but my child. And, when you don't have power, you can't keep it cold and it needs to be regulated. I know that the health department now has, I believe, a surplus of insulin. And so if they need it, they can get it through the health department. I know that people have been taking generators so that they can actually run a refrigerator on that power to keep their insulin cold, or for oxygen. That's been another one with a lot of our elderly people being on oxygen. They've actually taken oxygen tanks out there and things so that way they could dialysis. That was the other one that I had heard with some of our elderly people. So they've been taking them generators as well. So as we know the need, our people have been helping them make connections in the community to get that need filled. I can't guarantee that 100% of them have been met, but I know that they're working on them daily.
All the ones that we're aware of, our school nurses, if they have, especially type 1 diabetics that have to have insulin, those contacts have been made and we're referring them.
They've had drum drops.
Yeah, they've had drum drops to get medications to folks too. So we're communicating that. We're mainly working through the health department, and sometimes they're able to do that, but then sometimes the child's primary care provider has another outlet. So we're just trying to connect the boxes to make sure that when we're aware, I mean, if there's a need, but the ones that were receiving medication at school, we've already we've touched base with those students.
And it's not just the students, there's a lot of elderly people in that situation too.
I know the county brought in, while I was at the shelter, they brought in insulin, on dry ice to the county.
And Elevation Health received a whole shipment too, apparently.
And then, in the meeting today, the health department's been working to, as they know the need. Sometimes people will come in and say, hey, my neighbor needs X medication, whatever it is. They really need all of that information so that they can, get it to the person. And they've been, our sheriff's office and others have been going out and actually taking it to them if they need any TB or other means to get them their medications. It's truly been a beautiful community effort.
It has.
Any other questions or updates there? Do you think, in your opinion, does it help us that we're not alone in this as far as other districts?
We are not alone. There are other districts worse off than we are. But because we're so rural, we have a lot of places that just can't be accessed in the same way as maybe another district that has, a bigger city in it. So we have our own challenges, but we will overcome them. I know we will. But it's going to take time.
Will it help with DPI?
It will help DPI, I hope, but I also knew that we've got, I hope we have some advocates and got some meetings upcoming. I know there's, there are state meetings that are happening even when we're in crisis, that we're making our connections so that we can continue to advocate for Ashe County, let them know that we're not Asheville. And that, yes, and we will continue to do that. So you know me, I'm not afraid to ask for anything. And I will continue to ask for whatever our needs are. And sometimes I can get a little pushy. So because I don't like to know with when I know somebody needs something. And Ashe County has a lot of needs right now. We have a lot of kids hurting. And I know you guys are advocates like that too.
Anybody have anything else?
Eventually some of these children that come back to school are gonna need more shoes and clothes because their homes are washed away or stuff's been lost in the flood. So I guess, well, the shoe thing probably can take care of itself, but clothing.
So I talked to Melody Rector today and she said, what can I do? I'm ready to help now. And I said, well, thinking about coming into winter, I said, kids are gonna need boots. Some of them are gonna have to travel across creeks so that they never had to walk across. There's some other challenges that are out there. And I said, to be thinking about that.
I have a link on our website for donations. So far, I got about $1,000 and we're kind of earmarking that for each students coming
To buy,
back. Cleveland County Schools is what it's saying, so donate.
what are you gonna buy with it?
Any needs of children when they come back.
Like clothing, shoes, okay.
Clothes.
I didn't see that link.
I think we're gonna be taking care of this right back, like school supplies, then contact that opportunity.
Yeah, on the 15th, and I think they're making plans then to assess what our needs will be and do another drop later on, yeah.
We also have several connections though for our kids when they need clothing. I know we'll have more kids needing clothing right now than we had in the past, but we have such great partners. Like I have no doubt we could need.
In some of our distribution centers, we've been accepting new clothing. And so there's quite a bit of it that has come in, lots of coats, especially for the winter. And then between Ash Lily Cares and the Salvation Army, things that have come in that we don't have time to launder, we've taken directly there so that they can accept the good stuff to be able to get out to kids in need.
Well, the Irish Baptist Association, David Blackburn, we always do that, about 1,000 kids for Christmas. And they always ask for clothing and shoes and coats, if you can afford to. So I picked little ones with 2 kids.
It is. It's going to be in the 30s this week.
So that's 1,000 kids are gonna get new coats and shoes, because that's what they asked for, then they asked for the toys. So that'll be a big help this year, more than ever.
Any other questions?
I guess my biggest concern is, this area here, you would not, when you're in town and I have signal, it looks like nothing's ever happened.
That's right.
And then I go to Warrensville and Lansing and it looks like, in Warrensville, it looks like there was a bomb exploded there at the creek on the way to the middle school. I would hope that everybody would be patient because it seems like, why is my kid not in school? Well, we would love for all of these children to be back in school, but we need them all to be back in school, not just some of them. And as Dr. Cox pointed out earlier, these are the kids, the ones that are the hardest hit right now are our most needy, anyway. So we need folks to realize, yes, you're in good shape and praise God that you are, but we've got others that we just cannot get to right now, and that we want them all back in school. So I hope parents will be patient with that. I hope families will be patient with that and understand that we are in this together. We are one school system, although the geography seems like we ought to be 2 or 3 sometimes. We are one school system. So please be patient and we will do the best we can. And we want the best for our families and our children, all of them.
And as we can engage kids, we will. And I know that that's hard because we do have some that we cannot reach, but we're gonna work in as many innovative ways that we can to make sure we can engage as many children that we can. This week, one of the other challenges is free college application week.
Oh, great.
And so, asking for an extension. Hopefully that will be granted for the hardest hit counties here. I think that would be really important and very helpful. Those deadlines, kids still have to meet. So, we're working I know our counselors were worried and wanting to bring people in so that they can get their applications in. Anyway, there are a lot of things that, some more important than others, but when you're a senior in high school, that's really important.
Yes. And I had a group of kids today that we were collecting salamanders. So if anybody wants to adopt a salamander, I have a habitat. And I think they found about 10 of those to go home with someone if you'd like to adopt a salamander.
Actually, I've got one of my own.
Okay. We'll leave you out there, Polly, but
Probably handling out behind the house, don't want any more.
So Diane, thank you for bringing up the patients. We all want to go back to school, every single one of us, and even our kids want to go back to school. I know our teachers want to get back to normalcy. We will do that as safety allows and know that safety has to come first. But we're working to meet all those other needs that we know that are out there. And if you know of a need that has not been met, please reach out to us because we really want our children to be taken care of. And we have a lot of people who are wrapping their arms around Ashe County right now. And we feel the love. Thank you to everybody who has been doing that. But our needs will continue over the next several months.
Our former students, I must say, have stepped up to the list too. I've gotten a lot of calls and things from, was I asked them to donate to Ashe Food Pantry, because that's dear to my heart. But it's amazing how many of our students that graduated from the high schools here have come to our rescue. So we'll get through it, but it'll take us a while.
It'll be hard to transition, but we'll have to transition into policy
I'm sorry.
discussion,
I
sorry.
did put it last.
Yeah.
It's the capital infrastructure.
So we have on Zoom with us, Sam Thorpe. He is an attorney with the School Boards Association. Sam, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Can we see Sam?
Do we see Sam?
Sam, I'll need you to stop sharing so we can see you.
Oh, okay, sure thing. I will stop share.
Ah,
Oh, there you go.
he
Is
is.
that better?
Where we see you now.
We see you.
Great. Thank you so much for making time for me, especially given all that you have going on. Very obviously, all that you have going on. Please accept my very heartfelt and sincere sympathies, my thoughts, my prayers as you navigate the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. I can hear it in your voices. It's just truly heartbreaking and devastating to read about, to listen to you talk. I can only imagine how truly heartbreaking and devastating it is for it to be you who's going through it, and your loved ones who are going through it, and your school system families and your school system students, and really and truly your brothers and your sisters. And so please, on behalf of me, on behalf of NCSBA, just know that we are thinking about you, we are praying for you, and we want to be as supportive and helpful and responsive to you as possible as you and all of our Western member boards navigate this just unprecedented crisis. So please let me know if there's anything that we can do, and let anyone here at NCSBA know if there's anything that we can do. And like your board chair said, I think it's impossible to not feel inappropriate shifting the conversation to policy when there's something this pressing at hand. But that is what I am tasked with doing. And before I get into the discussion of policy, I want to give you a little bit of background information about myself, since we'll be working closely with one another. As your superintendent, Dr. Cox said, my name is Sam Thorpe. I'm an attorney at the School Boards Association. I've been at NCSBA for a little over 7.5 years. I've done during that time quite a bit of both superintendent search work as well as legal and policy work with districts all over the state of North Carolina. Before I came to NCSBA, I practiced family law for a couple of years in Greenville, North Carolina. And before I ever went to law school, in what feels like another lifetime, I was a social worker. I worked with youth with developmental disabilities, and I worked with teenagers and young adults struggling with substance use disorders and sometimes other co-occurring mental health disorders. My wife is a teacher, was a teacher. She taught for 7.5 years in K-12 public schools, mostly elementary grades. Before transitioning to education research, she now manages an early math education project at NC State's College of Ed here in Raleigh, where we live with our 5-year-old son named James, who started kindergarten just a few weeks ago, which has been a very wild but fun ride. The reason I'm joining you tonight, very obviously, is because your board is starting the custom manual review process. And that is so incredibly significant and important because the two most important things that you do as locally elected board members, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but the two most important things you do, and I think they're equally important, are you select superintendents and you make policy that applies to all of the students and staff within your school system boundaries. And those policies inevitably, directly or indirectly, inure to the benefit of your students and your staff and your students' families and your staff's families. And that's why it's so incredibly important to have, number one, a legally compliant manual, one that adheres to, complies with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations, including the United States and North Carolina state constitutions. It's also really important that your manual, in as much as it contains custom language or entirely custom policies and language that is unique to the Ashe County schools, it's really important that that language be what you, the currently elected board, want to see in your policy manual, and that custom language or those custom policies align with your current practices, what's actually happening from a day-to-day perspective in your school district. And what's so great about this custom manual project is it empowers you, the board, with the opportunity. I know how busy you all are professionally and personally, especially with the hurricane, but this manual project gives you the opportunity to closely review each and every one of your 300 plus policies line by line to make sure that they're number one, legally compliant, and number two, to make sure that in as much as they contain custom language, that they align with current practices and are what you, the currently elected board, want to see in your policy manual. And what I'm going to do is walk through a PowerPoint that I've prepared. I'll give you a general flyover, so to speak, of what the custom manual process will look like. And then at the end, I'll of course answer any questions that you have. I would just add also that on the last slide, my cell phone and my email address are on that slide. And that's because I welcome any of you, including your superintendent or any of your central office staff who are working on the policies, as well as you as board members, to reach out to me with any questions that you have. This is the most important work, or what I think is some of the most important work you do as board members. You deserve to have someone who's going to be very responsive and helpful and supportive and open to discussing and answering any questions that you have. So I'll of course answer any questions that you have tonight, but I want you to know that a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, you're also welcome to reach out to me at any point, email, phone, text, whatever you're most comfortable with, to ask any questions that you have. And with that introduction out of the way, I'll go back to sharing my screen with the PowerPoint that I've prepared. I want to make sure that you're actually able to see it. Are you seeing the PowerPoint, the second slide?
We are.
Okay, so in addition to this PowerPoint, I also shared, in anticipation of this meeting, I shared with your superintendent, Dr. Cox, a number of other documents that I understand she's going to share with you close in time after this meeting. At some point, she's going to share all of these other documents with you. The first two are summary documents. They provide detailed explanations of what exactly is going to happen during the custom manual process. It's really a more detailed explanation than this PowerPoint is. And so I encourage you, when you have the chance, and I know you have a lot going on, but to take a look at those two summary documents. They will be helpful as you begin looking at the first section of policies. They'll also be really helpful at different times throughout the project when you have questions about particular revisions that you might see in a policy. The third document is a draft timeline, which includes target dates for when I'll share each section of the manual with your board. The main thing to keep in mind about the timeline is that it's a draft. It is not fixed or set in stone. There is certainly tons of flexibility from our standpoint in terms of the timeline. I have included 8-week intervals initially in the draft, but just know that we can move as fast or as slow as you would like as a board. And when I say slow, I don't mean that in some sense that you would be lazy or not moving as quick as you should as a board. I say that because you inevitably have things that come up. Obviously, you have Hurricane Helene that you're going to be dealing with for months and months moving forward. There are many other things that sometimes come up that boards have to deal with, and the policy manual just has to take a back seat. That being said, you do want to be thoughtful and deliberate about the pace of the project. And so I've included 8-week intervals. Just know that those are flexible. Last two things that I shared are a folder with all of the section 1000 policies in your manual. I've reviewed all of them. And I've excerpted 1 page of draft policy 1010 to explain to you the types of revisions that you'll see, or the types of notations that you'll see in the revised policies, which I'll get into more detail later in the PowerPoint. I also included an update chart. And it's really, really important that when you're reviewing each section of the manual, the revised policies, that you have alongside you the update chart. And that's because the update chart, and I'll show you an excerpt of the update chart to make this abundantly clear. But in that chart, there are very, very detailed notes that explain each and every revision or notation that you see that I've made in the policy. It sort of explains the why behind the revision that you see the policy. And so it's really important to make sure that when you're reviewing policies, you're also using that update chart as a guide and a go by. One difference that is not so relevant at this point in the project, but will become relevant as we move forward, that I want to point out to you, is that your manual, the Ashe County Schools Manual, is based very substantially on our NCSBA's model PLS manual. PLS stands for Policies to Lead the Schools. The only real difference, which is subtle, but in some cases a little bit significant, is that instead of 9 sections, your policy manual has 10 sections. And that is because you have taken, or your board has taken, along with your administration at some point, has taken all of your technology policies and put them in a separate and distinct section, which is 10,000, and it's titled, I should say, rather, technology. Our manual, all of those policies in your section 10,000 are based, it seems like most, if not all, are based on our technology policies. They're just coded in a different section. Our model manual codes the technology policies in what we feel like is the most relevant and applicable section in those ones you see listed 1 through 9,000 on the left-hand side of the slide. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is you have an employee use of technology policy. We include that policy in the 7,000s, where we try to include all employee personnel specific policies. You also have a student use of technology policy. We include that in our model manual in the section 4,000s, where we try to include all of the primarily student-centered policies. I bring this to your attention because I may, in providing you with revisions in some of these sections, I may make reference to a technology policy that we have that you address in section 10,000. I'm still going to review all of your section 10,000 technology policies. You're still going to have a chance to bring all of those up to compliance in terms of the law and applicable regulations and any custom language you have. It will be entirely up to you whether or not it's perfectly fine if you want to keep them in a section 10,000, if you want to move some or all of those to another section. I just didn't want you to be confused if when you're reviewing the section 3s or 4s or 7s and you saw me making reference to this subtle difference. There are many benefits, we think, to the new manual, but these are some of the more significant ones that our member boards point out as being most helpful to them and most helpful to their students and staff. Number one, at the end of the project, you will ideally have and should have a completely up-to-date manual, one that complies with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations, which is a very significant thing because sometimes the law changes or regulations change multiple times within a year. You will have reviewed all of the custom language within your policies to make sure that it's something that you, the board, want to see in the policy manual, that there are no legal issues, and that it aligns with current practices. And when I talk about custom language, you know, sometimes when we're reviewing these manuals, what we find is that there's custom language that the board we're currently working with put in the manual a year ago or 2 years ago with the help of the administration, with some feedback from some external stakeholders like teachers and students, for example. Other times what we find is that there's custom language in a manual that was put there by a board 5, 10, 15, sometimes even 20 or 25 plus years ago. And however well-intentioned, the current board, after reviewing it, doesn't want that language in the policy manual for any number of different reasons. Or if they do, they'd like to change the language and they'd like to work with the administration to make sure that that custom language aligns with current practices. And so what's great about this is this gives you the opportunity to have all that custom language brought to your attention and give you, the currently elected board, the opportunity to weigh in on it.
Mr. Thorpe,
I'm sorry?
excuse me, would you
Yes, ma'am.
give me an example of what might be customized language? I mean, I'm a hillbilly and I talk hillbilly sometime. I just wondered if you could give me an example of what you're talking about there with customized language.
Sure. A good example might be, I'm trying to think what a really good example would be. Sometimes there's unique things in a dress code, for example. Sometimes schools have, at certain schools, there are uniforms. There's a uniform policy that's unique to that school or unique to that school district. Sometimes there's a form that accompanies a policy that's unique to that school district and requires certain information to be shared by an employee who's filling out the form or students' parents who's filling out the form.
So it could be customized information. It'd be the best way for me to look at that when you say customized language.
Yes, I would say that generally when I'm saying custom language, it's not in our model manual, and it's generally like you may have an inclement weather policy. I don't know if you have a policy that deals specifically with snow.
Yeah. We do. Yeah, I get it.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Okay. We will make uniform all of the formatting to your policies in terms of the legal and cross references, as well as notating any revisions that you've made to the policy or any old policies that have been rescinded. This is usually really helpful in terms of making your manual as accessible, easily accessible and searchable as possible for your students and their families and your employees. There are also, you may already know this, but there are a lot of hyperlinks in policy manuals that take you to a legal document, to a form, to a reference document, and sometimes, because they haven't been looked at in months or years, they're taking you to a dead end. It's a dead link, so to speak. And it's tedious, but we do look at every single one of those and bring those up to date, which is really helpful for the students and staff that need that link, or sometimes an administrator that needs that link and is trying to get an answer to a question. And then final thing is, once you get a manual up to date, which is a lot of work, I'm not minimizing the work involved in it, but it is so much easier to keep an up to date manual up to date than one that is only up to date to varying degrees for obvious reasons. In terms of the process, I will share with your superintendent and your board one section at a time. At this point, I've shared the section 1000s, which includes all of your section 1000 policies, as well as an update chart with notes explaining each revision or notation that's made in the policies. At some point, and I know you have a lot going on, I can't emphasize that enough. At some point, I think you as a board, along with your superintendent and appropriate administrators, will review those policies. And it's really important to include the appropriate administrators in your review of the policies. For example, if it's an HR policy, a curriculum related policy, a finance policy, a technology policy, you want to have your finance folks, your HR folks, your curricular folks, your personnel folks at those review meetings. You want to include them in those discussions as much as possible. That'll be really helpful so that when you get to the first reading at a called meeting where you discuss the policy in open, you will have had all of the appropriate, at least internal stakeholders weigh in on the policy. After that discussion that you would have at that meeting, any feedback you would get, you have the ability to make any additional revisions you need to before a second reading, at which point most boards at that point are ready to adopt a policy and or rescind a policy if that's the case. Once you've done that, you will share with us the most up-to-date version of the policy that was adopted, and we will work with Microscribe, who I understand you're going to use in terms of web hosting. We work hand in glove with Microscribe and will move very quickly to clean up those policies and save them to our files and to get them posted to your online manual so that they're as accessible as soon as possible to your students and staff, as well as pulling down any old policies that need to be removed. And of course, we'll repeat this process for every section of the manual, including a 10th section for your technology policies. When you're taking a look at the section 1000 policies, you will see two different types of notations. You will see some text that is underlined and in a different color. That is either new text or is striking through current text. Those are called tracked changes. That's the technical term that Microsoft Word uses. And those are revisions, if they're in tracked changes, underlined and in a different color, those are revisions that we in CSBA are recommending to bring your manual into legal compliance. And there will be notes explaining each and every one of those with appropriate legal or regulatory citations. You will also see, you don't see them in this policy, unfortunately, and I hate that, but if language is highlighted, that means that it's custom, that it's not in our manual, it's unique to the Ashe County Schools manual. And we will, of course, encourage you to take a close look at that to make sure that it's something that you, the board, want to have in your manual. If you do want to have it, does the language reflect, is it stated how you want it to be stated? And of course, again, does it align with current practices? Does it espouse expectations that are being met and adhered to by your staff and students? You also will have, as I mentioned, a chart. And the most important column on the chart is the third one, the one on the far right-hand side. The first two columns have the policy number and the policy title. The one on the far right-hand side has all of the notes explaining in detail each recommended revision in the policy, as well as references to any highlighted language that we encourage you to take a close look at. One thing that I think goes without saying, but is really, really important for the success of the project, is that once you as a board have taken action, once you've finally gotten through that really hard work of reviewing the policies, making changes, subtracting changes, and voted on it, once you've done that, it's really important as soon as possible, either that day or the next day, to get those most up-to-date adopted policies to me, to NCSBA, so that we can work with Microscribe to getting the old policies taken down and the new policies put up. Sometimes, however, inadvertently, and I think it is always very innocent and inadvertent, there can be a lag between a board adopting a new policy and sending it to us and getting it posted to their online manual. And we have had some really sticky situations where a student or a parent or an employee, God forbid, or an administrator has relied on a policy that's out of date. Is not the policy that the board adopted, notwithstanding the fact that it was the one on the online manual that the employee or student or parent relied on. And we don't want to get into those issues. So just really, really important. And I'll work closely with Dr. Cox and your board to make sure that we're being as responsive as possible and getting those policies as up to date as possible. It's also really important to get a date on when the action was taken by your board, because we always make that notation at the bottom of each policy so that, for obvious reasons, if we need to, we can go back and look at the minutes of that specific meeting. In terms of next steps, I strongly encourage you to take a closer look when you have the time and hopefully some power to read the two summary documents that provide a more detailed explanation of the custom manual process. To begin when you think it's appropriate with Dr. Cox and appropriate administrators, begin that review process of the section 1000s. And then of course, know that I'm available at any point, obviously at the end of this PowerPoint in one more slide, but in the days and weeks ahead, as you begin reviewing the policies, I'm of course available to answer any questions that you have. I can even participate in some meetings or discussion that you have to answer any questions and provide as much clarity and support to you as possible as you undertake this process. That concludes my PowerPoint. I'm obviously perfectly happy to answer any questions that you have, but I know you have a lot going on. And that you may have questions down the road. Just know that I'm available at any point to answer those.
I have a question right now, if you're
Yes,
still
ma'am.
available.
Of course.
Are they, I know in our policy manual now that certain policies are referenced because they deal with more than one
Yes, ma'am.
subject area. Is
Uh-huh.
that going to hold true as well for the new manual?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have a question. When you were describing track changes, you said that the highlight was missing. Can you describe what the highlight will look
Oh,
like?
forgive me. So what I meant is there was no custom language to highlight in the.
I know, but when we
So
get.
the highlighting will be in yellow. You will see
Yellow.
language that's highlighted in yellow, but is not underlined and is not struck through. Or
Okay.
any different color. It's just highlighted. It'll be the same black Times New Roman text, but highlighted in yellow. And you'll see a notation in the notes that says the language that's highlighted is unique to Ashe County Schools. We encourage you to closely review that language to determine whether or not it merits revising, rescinding, adding to, basically bringing it to your attention, encouraging you to have those discussions. And again, you may see it and go, my gosh, we've had this in the manual for forever. This is perfectly consistent with what we do. It's that easy. Sometimes you go, now, why did we have this in there? You know, at what point did the board adopt this? And then you look at the adoption date and go, oh gosh, this was back in 2008. Maybe this is why we included the language in there. You know, it generates usually some helpful discussion in terms of the origins of the custom language and whether or not you want to keep it in there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mr. Thorpe?
So I just want to say that I did print the sample of the chart that Sam Thorpe was talking about. So you have that. Those are the 1,000 policies that have changes. So it's there are quite a few changes. And we will take it the section at a time. I will send you the timeline. We need to update it based on what you would like to do. And I also printed for you one of the documents that is the policy overview. And he shared with you verbally what that looked like. So that's included here. The policies themselves is a larger file. It will come in a zip file. And so you'll have to click on it and it'll download all of the different individual policies that will be highlighted or have the strike through changes because it has the track changes on. If you have any trouble with those documents in downloading them or seeing them, Amy and I'm going to volunteer Amy because she's so good with technology anyway. We will sit down with you individually to go through them. If you would rather have them printed, we can print policies for you. So just let us know what's going to work best for you. But personally, I like the summary document as the document to go through first. That way, when you're reading the policy, that language will make a little bit more sense because sometimes the policies are very, very long and this gives you a nice summary to begin with. Again, those will all come to you tomorrow. I'm not going to send them tonight, but I will send you those tomorrow. And I need to update the timeline based on when you would like to start this process. My recommendation would be, even under our current circumstances, that we start looking at the 1000s next month. And then they would sit through until December for approval. That way you guys have time to look at it and then the changes that you all make would be in December. And that would give you an idea of the pace of what kind of work it's going to take to review that number of policies. And then based on the number of policy changes that we have in the future for different sections, you can determine what that looks like for the board. If we need to have a work session to sit down and look at it and talk about it, we could also do that. I know we typically, we usually have work sessions, but we haven't this board hasn't structured work sessions in between regular meetings. That's something that is a potential if you wanted to just dedicate it to policy. But I know we also talked about a potential work session to talk about the return to school and our roads coming up. And I know that that's a lot of time coming away from the board. So it's whatever your desires are in this. And I will be the one sending the changes to Sam and his team once they are updated.
Personally, I think it would be easier to have it separate than in a regular board meeting, but that's me. We have so many other things to look at a board meeting.
I agree. I think it's too big of a task to be done in a board meeting.
Yeah. Just do it and come prepared to know what you want.
And how quickly do we need to access these zip files? I have no internet at home yet.
Well, and that's why that's up to you all. I mean, that's up to you all. I just wanted, I didn't send the timeline because I didn't want you guys to feel like we had to do it immediately, especially under this crisis. Clearly you can't access them right now because you don't have power or internet. I mean, that's a big challenge. And a lot of us even are in and out, and the lights were flickering just a few minutes ago, a couple of times. I was getting nervous that we just have to shut down tonight. So anyway, it's really up to you how you want to pace it. Just know that these are, you see in the 1000s, and there are 10 sections, there are a lot of changes.
Yeah.
And I think we've known this is coming, but I applaud the board for taking this on because, it is something that needs done. It's up to you, and I'll structure it. And I don't know that you have to decide today how you want to do it. But certainly, I can draft a timeline if you'd like and what that might look like. And we can just, decide soon if you want to have a work session to, discuss some of these policy changes.
If we finish this one in December, do you think we can't do one every 2 months? There's 9 of them. One every month after that, or one every 2 months?
Sam, do you want to chime in on timing and pacing since you have some experience with this?
So in the best of circumstances, which you very clearly are not in, these projects take a minimum usually of 18 months, a year and a half. I know that sounds so incredibly overwhelming, but there are districts that really and truly we've been working with for sometimes 3+ years on custom. I mean, in total there are over 300 policies, and when you add in procedures, you can have more than 350. And some of the policies are a page long, and some are 11 and 12 pages long. And it, in many ways, it will depend on your ability to review them, and then also several things. So your time and availability in terms to review them. Second, it will depend on just how out of date the policies are, as in how many revisions, which is going to vary. And then it's also going to depend on the volume of policies that you're reviewing in each section. The 4000s and 7000s have some of the majority of your policies in terms of volume, 50 plus. I think the 7000s have even 60 or 70 plus, whereas the 1000s have more like 25, 26 policies in total.
Would it be advantageous to look at the ones that affect the school process more? Like, I was looking at this, the 4000s, the 5000s, the 7000s seemed a little bit more important to us than 9000 maybe, as far as getting those revisions, because they affect more people. Would that be an option, or is it the best plan just to go straight through and bite the bullet?
We can do it however you want. I will say a lot of, it can be very overwhelming to get those 4,000s all at once. And some boards like to sort of get into a more predictable workflow, get a feel for what the revisions are going to look like, get a feel for what their discussions with other board members are going to look like, what their discussion with the internal administrators are going to look like. What I would tell you, as long as you're working on updating the manual, you're okay. Obviously, we can start in the 4,000s if you want, or the 7,000s. It just can be really overwhelming to start with the 4s or the 7s.
Better to start with the shorter one, get a feel for it.
Let's just do it. I say, come on, the first one is short.
And one of the things I would like to suggest is that by the November meeting, you've looked through the calendar and picked a set time each month that we meet for whatever length of time the board members want to. For me, having last minute schedules is difficult. So if I know this Monday or this Friday or this whatever of each month I'm going to meet, then I can work around it and be better prepared for it.
Well, we need to do the first one. We need to do with 1,000 first because it involves the others. And it only has 23.
This one is one of the shorter sections.
Well, we
So I
really
think it will be less daunting
Yeah.
than some of the bigger ones. And then after that, if you want to skip around, that's what if that's the desire of the board, we can do whatever you want.
Well, I think we ought to start with the 1,000 and is it controls?
Sam, is there a possibility of, since our 10,000s are separate and very different from others, is it possible to just incorporate that into the others, 1 through 9, as your policy manual is, to make it less confusing when we're going to update policies later?
Yes, so what I was planning on doing was, of course, the other thing I don't know yet, because I haven't looked, is whether or not sometimes boards do you have an employee use of technology policy in your
Yes.
7,000s and a technology? As in, are you cross-referencing it or do you have two separate ones?
I think they're the same policy.
I think they're the same policy.
Well, that's good. If you have it cross-referenced, then I'm absolutely going to, I was going to discuss it anyway. If you didn't have it cross-referenced, and you may have it cross-referenced in some places and not in others, what I was
Right.
going to do was tell you which, of course, make a notation of where you address this, and let you know that I would get to it in the 10,000. But if you'd like, I can go ahead, and if it's not cross-referenced, provide the feedback on it.
Well, I think we would probably like having it not as a separate section, but incorporating it in from a, I don't know, it's a little bit easier if it's in personnel and all the personnel policies are in personnel. That makes sense to me versus having a separate technology that has other things, and all student policies are in the students. Makes it easier to find so that people aren't thinking about it that way. But of course, that's up to the board on how you want to structure that. It is the board's policy.
I think probably how technology got to be a separate category was probably we didn't need policies on technology, but we did need policies for students until recently. And, technology has changed in the last 10 years, 5 years even. So I think that's probably why we ended up with a separate technology section, but I don't see the need for it myself. Be up to what y'all think.
I'm hearing rumblings that we're all, I think, in agreement to do them like they have them.
Well, I'd like to hear from Dr. Simmons what she thinks about that.
That's fine.
Okay. So we really would be dealing with 9 instead of 10.
Same policies though.
Well,
But
yeah,
that's
some of them are
what-
cross-referenced.
True.
And if
True.
we eliminate the technology, then most of those are probably cross-referenced in our other areas, I would think.
And that's one question I had that I forgot about. Our sections, do we not have, I thought we had a 5,000
We do.
grouping, but it was not on the, so he did just got left out of our list on the right side of that.
Yeah, on the slide,
On the
Sam,
slide.
on the slide.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
5,000
I
dollars.
apologize. You do have a 5,000. I apologize.
Okay.
Well,
Continue
short
now.
one, long, short. Yeah, you're not going to come. Because we've got the policies there, we've heard that they still.
Janet, as I get why you would want to have a certain date and a certain time to review, but my schedule doesn't often work that way, so. I mean, I will try to make it work that way, if it works that way best for the board. My schedule is probably in and out and up and down and sideways.
Well, as you know, we have the first Monday of the month, but we also change it. So if you have a 2-week or 3-week notification, like if we know at the board meeting this month's policy meeting will be X, rather than an email saying we need to meet next Tuesday, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, it's easier to plan if I know ahead, but I'm saying that if we do it every Tuesday of the month, that might not be a possibility. But if we know in advance, I'll try to make sure that I can move things around to make some things.
Let's make a tentative schedule.
I can draft a tentative
Then we'll
schedule
all
for you,
set our calendars for that.
and then you all can decide on when is best to meet within that.
When were you thinking about DOT? This month or next month?
This month, you say, sooner than later, because I want to get back to school sooner than later, but I would think.
Which day like this?
And of course, I'm gonna have to coordinate to make sure that they are available. I was thinking sometime, maybe next week, maybe even like the 17th, which is a Thursday. I don't know what that looks like for you, but we do have a bid opening tentatively on that date at 2 o'clock, if anybody wanted to attend. But it doesn't have to be that date. If you guys want me to try to arrange, but I was thinking that by the end of next week, they would have a pretty good idea of what our roads look like. So that we can have a better idea of when or how to plan for school reentry and how far out that might be.
So you're thinking tentatively maybe the 17th. Yes.
Then that, like I said, if that works for you all. I'm just trying to think of when you're gonna have the most timely information and have the ability to ask some questions. And then we can use that information to plan forward on reentry for school. And again, it's changing every single day. And I know that I'm anxious to get back to school, but things that I heard today does not make that, I'm not real optimistic on that being in the next couple of weeks.
Have you heard anything on a totally different topic about how they're handling early voting, which starts the 17th, supposedly?
So that's all done in one space, but I don't have all the answers on early voting.
The only thing I have on the 17th, we've got a board of trustee meeting in Allegheny County. I think it's still going on. It's at 4:30 PM. So the morning would be,
Morning on I could do the morning or
So,
the 17th.
So Sam, I know you have a 5-year-old at home. If you want to leave, and we'll get back to you so you can go and do your nightly routine.
Thank y'all for making time for me. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm thinking about y'all.
thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
At this point, the 17th works for me, any point in time of that day.
We could also, potentially do the 18th. I wouldn't recommend too late on a Friday. But I wouldn't want to go a whole lot earlier than that because I don't know how much information we're going to have. I mean, they'll give you some of the same things that I gave you, maybe provide a better update, but I just, I'm trying to give them time to have the real assessment there. We could do the 16th maybe in the, like in the afternoon later, but I don't know if that's.
I don't know if they'll be ready.
10 days is not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time. I know.
Friday does give us more time to review than Wednesday.
Well, we're thinking about the DOT, not necessarily the policies too. So I don't know, and we could do them both on the same day, and we can do that on the 21st if you want, Monday the 21st. We could do two things if you wanted to have the DOT come and talk and share.
I'm doing a quilting workshop on the 21st,
I'm fascinated.
so.
So 17th, you said might work during the day.
During the day.
Like 10.
You want to do it like 10 a.m.?
Yeah.
And then finish by 2 when they have the bid opening.
10 a.m. to 2 on the 17th.
Hopefully it won't last that long. I don't know.
Okay.
Anybody got any conflicts there?
17.
I've got a conflict every day till school starts. And more than one, some days like tomorrow.
What about 18th?
What day is that?
Friday.
Friday the 18th.
What time?
I'd say earlier than later.
10.
I've got it. No, finish my hair down. Okay.
You want to do like at 11 o'clock?
If I get out by 12:45. So we're not doing 7:20.
Well, I mean, we can, I just throwing it out there.
I'll see if I can.
Can you just say
work
what
it
the
out.
meeting?
I can't say.
I can't do
today,
that.
but
I think we did 10 on.
best to work.
Can we do it on Friday the 10th, at 10 o'clock?
Oh, or 17th.
We could do the 17th at 10. Yeah.
Either one.
Whichever one. That's up to you all.
I thought we was gonna do the 17th from 10 to 2. Somebody can't do that.
Do that.
Is
17th.
everybody good with that?
I was good with that.
Don't know that, right?
I
You're-
I
Yeah.
can't say that yet. I have to have all
I should serve
trainings.
breakfast early and supper late.
She's working 20 hours.
Mhm.
And then, it's not that, I'll have to coordinate with Mike to see what he's got going. We know what Tasha's got going. So. I'll
You
have
gonna
to
pencil that,
coordinate.
is that good to pencil in?
What?
Right now,
Yeah,
possibly?
I'll go ahead, either way.
Yeah, let's go on. All right.
Yeah.
It's, where is it? It's double working, you know, electricity.
We don't.
Well, I'm just, it's 9 o'clock.
I guess 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock on the 17th.
I just.
Dr. Cindy says that's.
Yes, there was much, George is how I got that, since picking up.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Yeah, maybe second.
Polly Jones. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, raise your hands. Good.